When my tire blew out during the worst storm of the year, I thought my career was over. I'd missed the interview that could change everything. Then a mysterious man appeared, fixed my tire in minutes, and vanished. 24 hours later, I discovered he wasn't just any good Samaritan. He was about to become my boss. My name is Jessica Martinez. I'm 28 years old and I live in Denver, Colorado. I'm a young professional working in marketing, or I was, until this incredible story happened to me. This story is about how my life completely changed, how I reached the peak of my career, and even how I found the love of my life. Everything started last winter during December, the coldest month. I had been unemployed for 3 months and my savings were dangerously low. I was living alone in a small apartment in Cherry Creek, and I was starting to struggle with rent payments. My mom lived in Phoenix and kept saying, "Come home, you'll find a job here." But I had fallen in love with Denver, the view of the Rocky Mountains, the energy of young professionals, the rapidly growing tech sector. I was determined to stay. At that time, I had applied for a senior marketing manager position at Summit Tech Solutions, one of Denver's largest tech companies. This wasn't just a job, this was my dream job. Summit Tech was a company working on environmental technologies and sustainable energy solutions. I had also done my master's degree in environmental science at the University of Colorado, and this field was my passion. The research I did about the company was truly impressive. CEO Michael Hamilton had founded the company when he was only 35 and turned it into a 500-employee tech giant within 5 years. Forbes magazine had given him the Environmental Technology Leader Award. When I looked at his LinkedIn profile, I saw that he studied business at Stanford, had previously worked at Tesla, and had 2 environmental technology patents. The application process had lasted a full 3 months. In the first stage, 100 people had applied, and I had made it to the first round among dozens of people. In the second stage, I had a video interview with the marketing manager. Sarah Walsh, the marketing manager, had been very impressed with my sustainability campaign ideas. In the third stage, I had a face-to-face interview with human resources at their offices in Boulder. In the final stage, only 3 people remained, and the final interview would be directly with CEO Michael Hamilton. I had really worked hard to get this opportunity. I had revised my resume countless times, checked my references, researched pages about the company. I had even examined the company's financial reports from the last 3 years. I had spent exactly 2 weeks preparing for this interview. I had spent hours at the library in downtown Denver learning about all of Summit Tech's projects, competitors, and position in the industry. I had done mock interviews with my friend Rachel. I had even gotten help from a professional image consultant and chosen a perfect suit for the interview: navy blazer, white shirt, gray pants. I had spent half of all my savings on that outfit, but it was worth it. The interview was scheduled for Tuesday, December 15th at 9 a.m. Summit Tech's headquarters was in Boulder, French Fork, about a 2-hour journey from my home in Capitol Hill. Under normal circumstances, I could easily reach there by following Interstate 25 and switching to US 36. I had planned every detail. I would sleep early the night before, wake up at 6 a.m., have breakfast at 6:30, and leave at 7. This way, I would be in Boulder at 8:30 with 30 minutes to compose myself. But life never goes as you plan. On Monday evening, December 14th, Channel 7 News weather report was giving terrible news. A major snowstorm was approaching Colorado, especially the Front Range area. Meteorologist Jim Castillo was calling it the biggest storm of the last decade. According to forecasts, 2 to 3 feet of snow would fall within 24 hours, and wind speeds would reach 60 miles per hour. That evening, my friend Rachel called. "Jess, you're not thinking of traveling in this weather, are you? You could postpone the interview." "Rachel, this opportunity might not come again," I said. "I've been unemployed for 3 months. My savings are running out. I can't miss this interview. But your safety is more important. What if something happens on the road?" "It won't," I said determinedly. "I'll be very careful." I couldn't sleep at all that night. I kept looking out the window. Snow had started falling at midnight. I woke up at 2 a.m. and checked the weather. The storm had come earlier and more severe than expected. But I didn't want to give up. At 5 a.m., I made my final decision. I would leave early before the worst part of the storm. The Weather Channel was saying some areas were still travelable. I prepared my coffee, double espresso because I needed energy and focus. I put on my carefully chosen suit, did my makeup, put up my hair. When I looked in the mirror, I looked professional, but there was worry in my eyes. When I opened the door, the scene I encountered took my breath away. Outside was a complete white hell. Snow was falling so heavily that I couldn't even see the apartment across the street. Wind was blowing with a force that could crack windows. But I was very determined. I couldn't miss this opportunity. Almost a foot of snow had accumulated on my Honda Civic. I started cleaning the windows, lights, and doors with a snow brush. This process continued until my fingers became numb. I checked the tires. I had all-season tires, but no snow chains. Still, I thought I could manage. When I started the engine, I waited for the car to warm up. I checked the route on GPS. The journey that normally took 1 hour 45 minutes could take at least 3 hours in this weather. But I still had time. I left at 6:30. The first few blocks were terrible. Snowplows were working on Colfax Avenue, but the roads had turned into ice rinks. I was trying to go 15 miles per hour, but the car's sliding scared me. When I managed to get onto Interstate 25, I relaxed a bit. Snow clearing was better here, and there were a few other brave drivers. But my visibility was no more than 20 to 30 meters. For the first hour, everything was under my control. I was moving very slowly but steadily. The radio kept giving "don't travel unless necessary" warnings, but I continued. There was a truck convoy heading toward Colorado Springs, and I was trying to follow them. When we passed Santa Fe Drive, the situation started getting worse. Snow was falling heavier, wind was shaking the cars. I saw several cars that had gone off the road. Emergency vehicles had come to all of them, but the scene wasn't encouraging at all. When I passed Thornton, I really started to worry. My visibility dropped to 10 meters. GPS was saying 45 minutes to destination, but at this speed, it would take at least 1.5 more hours. When we passed 104th Avenue, the storm reached its peak. The wind was so violent that I felt like it would blow my small car off the road. The radio announced emergency declared, all roads closing. But I was very close. Boulder was only 20 minutes away. I couldn't give up. After Westminster, everything went out of control. Suddenly I heard a terrible sound. Bang! It was like a bomb had exploded. My car shook violently and went out of control. I hit a big tow truck coming from the left and managed to pull myself to the side of the road. A tire had blown out. At the worst moment, in the worst place. I was on the side of Highway 36 in a place where there was nothing. The nearest exit was miles away. There wasn't even a building around, just endless white land and the scream of the wind. My watch showed 8:15. I had 45 minutes until my interview, and I was stranded in the middle of a snowstorm. I tried not to panic. I took out my phone, but there was no signal. Nowhere. AT&T, Verizon, none of them had signal. I couldn't even see another car for miles around. I decided to get out of the car and assess the situation. The cold was so terrible that I couldn't breathe. Snow was getting in my eyes, mouth, everywhere. The front left tire had completely blown out. The wheel was sitting on the rim. I tried to open the trunk, but the lid was locked with snow and ice. After struggling for 5 minutes, I managed to open it. Inside was a spare tire, jack, and tool set. But changing a tire in the middle of a snowstorm seemed almost impossible. Still, I had no other choice. I took out the jack, but my hands were so cold that I couldn't hold it. I realized I didn't have snow gloves. I had forgotten them at home. Touching icy metal with bare hands was torture. I tried to get the spare tire out, but it weighed 50 pounds and my hands had gone numb. While lowering the tire to the ground, I almost dropped it on my foot. I tried to place the jack under the car, but I couldn't find the right point. Snow was 6 inches deep on the ground. The jack kept sinking and sliding. With each attempt, snow was getting inside my snow boots. My feet were freezing. After struggling for 15 minutes, I had only managed to get the jack in the right position. When I tried to lift the car, the jack slipped and I was back to square one. At that moment, I really thought about giving up. I went back to the car and started crying at the steering wheel. I had prepared for 3 months, had so much hope, had worked so hard for this dream job, And now I was losing everything because of a damn tire. I looked at my phone again. Still no signal. But a miracle happened. I caught 1 bar of signal. I immediately called Summit Tech. After a few rings, an assistant named Jessica answered. Summit Tech Solutions, Jessica speaking. Hello, Jessica. This is Jessica Martinez. I have an interview with CEO Mr. Hamilton at 9 o'clock. Oh, yes, Miss Martinez. How are you? Not very good, I said desperately. I'm stranded on the road. My tire blew out and I'm in a snowstorm. Can we postpone the interview? There was silence on the phone. Can you hold for a moment? Let me speak with Mr. Hamilton. Minutes later, she came back. Miss Martinez? Mr. Hamilton understands the weather conditions. We're moving your interview to 10:30. Please be very careful on your journey and don't risk your safety. Thank you, I said. I'll try my best to come. Now I had 2 hours. Maybe I could handle it. I went outside again and started working on the tire. This time I approached it more systematically. First, I stabilized the jack by putting stones and branches under it. Then I found the correct lifting point. But the snow was getting heavier. My hands were so cold that I couldn't hold the metal tools. Every few minutes, I had to go back to the car to warm my hands. Removing the blown tire was the hardest part. The bolts were stuck due to snow and ice. I was trying to turn with all my strength, but the wrench kept slipping from my hands. Just when I was thinking about giving up, I saw headlights in the distance. My heartbeat quickened. Was help coming? A dark-colored BMW X5 slowed down and stopped about 20 meters ahead of me. The door opened and a tall man got out. He was wearing an expensive-looking navy North Face jacket with a black knit hat on his head. Even in the snowstorm, he walked confidently. Do you need help? He shouted, trying to overcome the sound of the wind. Yes, I shouted back. My tire blew out and I have an interview. The man approached. He was in his 40s, athletic build, strong jaw, sincere brown eyes. He had a genuine expression on his face. I'm Michael, he said, extending his hand. Traveling in this weather is very dangerous. It must be something very important. I'm Jessica, I said. I have an interview for my dream job. I'm going to meet with the CEO at Summit Tech Solutions. I've been unemployed for 3 months, and this is my last chance. Michael paused for a moment and looked at me carefully. Summit Tech is an excellent company. They really do pioneering work in environmental technology. I understand very well why you'd want to work there. Are you in the tech industry too? I asked. Somewhat. Yes, he said with a smile. But now, let's first take care of this tire. Michael took off his expensive jacket and rolled up his sleeves. Underneath was a quality gray sweater, probably cashmere. He had an expensive-looking Rolex watch, but without caring about these, he knelt in the snow and mud. This jack is too small, he said while assessing the situation. But it'll do. You go in the car, you're getting cold. No, let me help, I said. No need. I've done this before. Michael's tire changing was very professional. First, he put bigger stones under the jack, then found the right point for the car's balance. To loosen the slippery bolts due to snow, he wrapped the wrench with fabric from his own jacket so he could grip it better. You work in marketing, right? He asked while working. Yes. I'm especially interested in campaigns focused on sustainability and environmental awareness. Very important field, he said while continuing to loosen the bolts. Marketing is critical, especially for environmental technologies. You have to tell customers that your product isn't just good, but necessary for the future. Exactly what I was thinking. Absolutely. People are ready to spend money for the environment, but they need to be convinced first. Emotional connection is very important, he said while mounting the spare tire. People want to leave a better world for their children. This motivation is very powerful. While talking to Michael, I was amazed at how knowledgeable he was about these subjects. He wasn't just a helpful person, but also an experienced professional who knew the industry well. What type of companies have you worked for? I asked. A few tech companies, he said modestly. From startups to large corporations, I've worked a lot with marketing departments. 25 minutes later, the tire was mounted. Michael stood up, his hands were covered in mud and oil, his expensive pants were ruined, but he had a satisfied smile on his face. There, he said, cleaning his hands with snow. Now you won't miss your interview. I took out my wallet. I only had $47 inside, but I offered to give it all. How can I thank you? I should pay you something for so much help. Michael raised his hand. Absolutely no need, really. But your jacket is ruined, your watch got damaged, at least let me pay for cleaning costs. Jessica, he said with a sincere voice, sometimes people just help each other. There's no need to look for reasons for this. If you saw someone else in trouble, you'd help too, wouldn't you? Of course I would. That's how simple it is. There's something called pay it forward. Pass the kindness to the next person. As he walked toward his BMW, I called after him. I didn't get your full name, Michael. Just Michael is enough, he said while getting in his car. I hope you're very successful in your interview, Jessica. Summit Tech Wilkie Lucky. How do you know I'll be successful? Because even in this weather, under these conditions, you're not giving up. That shows character. As he started the engine, he called through the window, drive safely. The roads are still very dangerous. And then he disappeared into the snowstorm. When I reached Boulder, my watch showed 10:15. Summit Tech's office was very impressive, an ultra-modern building made entirely of glass and steel. In the heart of downtown Boulder with a view of the Flatirons. On normal days, it must have been magnificent, but today everything was covered in snow. A young woman greeted me at reception. You must be Jessica Martinez. We were worried when you were late. I had some trouble on the road, I said, but I'm here. Perfect. I'm Ashley. Let me get you some coffee. You need to warm up a bit. Mr. Hamilton is waiting for you on the 25th floor. I went to the bathroom to compose myself. My hair was snowy and messy. My makeup had run. There was a mud stain on my pants. I fixed it as much as I could, but I didn't look perfect. In the elevator, my heart was beating wildly. During the 25 floors, I tried to motivate myself. You can do this, Jessica. You've come this far. Don't give up now. When the elevator door opened, the scene I encountered took my breath away. The office was completely glass-walled, with a 360-degree view of Boulder and the Rocky Mountains. On normal days, it must have been magnificent. Modern art pieces, minimalist furniture, high-tech equipment everywhere. Assistant Jessica was waiting for me. Mr. Hamilton will be right here. Please sit down. How would you like your coffee? Could I have a latte with 2 sugars? I need energy. Of course. While sitting in the waiting room chair, I looked at the panels showing Summit Tech's awards and projects. The company was really doing impressive work. Solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicle charging stations, exactly my area of interest. 10 minutes later, Jessica came back. Mr. Hamilton is ready. Please come in. When I opened the door to his office, I couldn't see anyone inside. The desk was very large, the windows were huge, but the room was empty. I said hello out loud. 1 second, someone called out. The voice sounded familiar, but I couldn't figure out who it was. A few seconds later, someone came out of the side room. His back was turned. He was talking on the phone. Yes, Tom, the security issue is resolved. The server problem at the Denver office is handled. I have a very important interview now. Okay, we'll talk this afternoon. He hung up the phone and turned around. My heart stopped. My breath was cut off. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Michael, the man who changed my tire in the snow that morning, who didn't mind getting muddy, who ruined his expensive clothes, who refused my money. Jessica, he said with a big smile. It's really wonderful to see you here. I couldn't speak from shock. Words got tangled in my throat. You, but how? I'm the CEO of Summit Tech, he said while going behind his desk. Michael Hamilton. We didn't officially meet this morning, but now let's meet. While I was still in shock, he calmly sat down and invited me to sit as well. But why? I managed to stammer. Why did you help? You didn't even know me. Michael leaned back and put his hands together. Jessica, I conduct dozens of interviews every day. I look at CVs, examine experiences, check references, test technical knowledge, but I can't see what's really important, character, on paper. This morning, in that storm, I encountered you at your worst moment. No one was around, no one was watching. You weren't going to share it on social media, but you were still trying to do the right thing. You valued this job so much that you were risking your life. You weren't giving up. I couldn't breathe. When I helped you, you didn't know me, didn't know my status, had no idea I was a CEO, but you were still grateful, respectful, kind. You offered money, and I could tell that your $47 was very valuable to you. But when I refused, you didn't insist. While we were talking, your eyes lit up. When we talked about environmental technologies, I saw real passion. This isn't just a job for you, it's a mission, and that's why I want you. My eyes welled up. You mean, the job is yours, Jessica, if you want it, of course. At that moment, my world changed. 3 months of unemployment, that morning's panic, stress, desperation, everything suddenly made sense. Yes, I said with a trembling voice. Yes, I definitely want it. Michael stood up and extended his hand, then welcome to the Summit Tech family. As I shook his hand, I remembered that desperate moment this morning. Stranded in a snowstorm, thinking everything was over. Who could have known that moment itself would become my savior? By the way, Michael said, did you ever think about giving up on traveling in that storm? Most people would have. Honestly, I did think about it, I said. But this opportunity was too valuable. It was worth taking the risk for my dream job. That's exactly why I want you, he said. At a company like Summit Tech, we need passionate, determined people who understand the importance of taking risks. So when can I start? How about next Monday? Let me show you around the office, introduce you to the team. From that day on, my life completely changed. Working at Summit Tech was even better than I had dreamed. In the marketing department, we were running campaigns on environmental technologies. My first project was an awareness campaign for solar panels. I had developed the slogan, "Your roof, your power, your future," and the campaign had achieved great success. Michael became not only a great boss, but also a perfect mentor. He taught me many things, not just about work life, but about leadership, character, and humanity. That snowstorm, he said one day at lunch, was destiny for both of us. I needed to see your real character, and you needed to learn that I wasn't just a rich CEO, but also a helpful human being. 3 months later, Michael made me assistant marketing manager. Jessica, your campaigns increased sales by 40%. Customer satisfaction is at its highest level. You've earned a promotion. 6 months later, I became a full marketing manager. A year later, marketing director. And 2 years later, yes, I asked Michael out on a date. That evening, we met at the most beautiful restaurant in Denver's Lodo district. Roots Down, famous for its organic food. It was Michael's favorite. Michael, I said after the main course, I want to ask you something. A question? Of course. I don't know what the boss-employee relationship says about this, but would you go out with me? Michael put on that big smile of his. Jessica, I was planning to ask you the same question, but as an employee, I was waiting for you to take the first step. Why? Because I remember the Jessica from that snowy day. Not the one who was afraid, but the one who was brave. This also required courage. On our first date, Michael told me more about that snowstorm day. Actually, that morning, I was coming from Boulder to Denver for an emergency board meeting, he said. The Weather Channel was saying the roads would close, but we needed to make an important decision. When I saw you, I could have not stopped. I would have been late for the meeting. So why did you stop? I heard my father's voice. He had passed away 3 years earlier, but I still hear his voice sometimes. He always said, Michael, no matter how successful you become, never turn your back on someone who needs help. That morning, I heard his voice very clearly. What was he saying? Stop. That girl needs your help, and you need to see her character. Now, 3 years later, we're married. We had our wedding last fall, exactly on the anniversary of the snowstorm. A small, intimate ceremony in Aspen. And Michael is still CEO of Summit Tech, and I've now started my own marketing consulting company, Sustainable Marketing Solutions. And of course, Summit Tech is still our biggest client. In our wedding vows, Michael had said, Jessica, that snowstorm day didn't just show me that I found the love of my life. It also showed me that I found my best work partner. Together, we'll create a better world. And I had said to him, Michael, you didn't teach me how to change a tire that day. You taught me to never give up, and sometimes the greatest opportunities come from the hardest moments. Last month, exactly 3 years later, we were driving on the same road. It wasn't snowing, but Michael stopped. Why did we stop? I asked. To remember that day, he said. Look at that spot. We got out. We looked at the point where I'd been desperate. Now, there was a small flower garden there. The Colorado Department of Transportation had beautified that area. You know, Michael said, what do you think would have happened that day if your tire hadn't blown out? I don't know, I said. Maybe I would have passed the interview, maybe I wouldn't have, but I would never have met you, and we wouldn't have this beautiful life now. I wouldn't have met you either, he said, and I would have missed the love of my life, my best friend, my business partner. Driving home that evening, Michael said to me, Jessica, people often talk about luck, fate, coincidence, but I now know that none of it was coincidence. That snowstorm, that blown tire, that desperate moment. It was all to bring us together. I agree, I said. But that day you didn't just help, you gave me the most valuable lesson. What was that? Humanity is the most important resume. Technical skills can get you a job, experience can give you a position, but character gives you a life. Now, every time it snows, we remember that day. In Summit Tech's marketing department, there's still a photo from that day. The satellite image of the snowstorm from the Weather Channel. Below it says, sometimes the worst storms bring the best opportunities. Since that day, I also try to help people stranded on the road. Last winter, I helped 5 people, once changing a tire, twice towing, twice just moral support. Because you never know, maybe that person is your future spouse, maybe your best friend, maybe the beginning of a lifelong friendship. In Michael's office, there's still a memento from that snowstorm day. The tire iron is framed and hanging on the wall. Below it says, the tool that changed 2 lives, December 15th, 2023. And that day really changed both of our lives. A story that started in a snowstorm, continued with helping each other, grew with love, and was crowned with a happy ending. Michael now calls me Storm Girl jokingly, and I call him CEO Superman. Because that day he really had become my superhero. Last week at Summit Tech's annual meeting, Michael told the employees, success isn't just measured by numbers. Sometimes success is measured by making the right decision at the right time in the right place. Sometimes success is measured by showing your character while helping someone. And then he looked at me. And sometimes success is measured by knowing not to give up even in a snowstorm. The most important thing he taught me that day was this: life sometimes gives you the hardest moments to test you, but those moments also open the door to your greatest opportunities. What's important is not losing your character in the face of the test. Now, every morning when we go to work, we pass that road, and every time we're grateful. Because that blown tire didn't just lead us to each other, it led us to our dreams, our careers, and the beautiful future we'll build together. Finally, I want to say this: if you face difficulties in life, don't give up, because you never know. Maybe that difficulty is taking you exactly where you need to be, and maybe that moment itself is the beginning of the most beautiful story of your life.